You are in for an interesting ride.
I'm in Ireland, sunny Ireland, yeah.
It's only been since 2020, since March, is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's when I suppose when I had my first encounter, yeah.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable telling me about that? Would you?
Yeah, so I suppose the very start of it would have been in 2017. I was sitting on the couch with my then partner and we were looking for something to watch on the telly, and I came across this documentary, Unacknowledged. Never had any interest in UFOs or ETs. You know, an odd time you'd hear kind of, you know, your Area 51 mentioned and that sort of thing. It would go in one ear and out the other. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't pay it any heed. Started watching the documentary and the two of us watched it. And I turned to her at the end and I said, that can't be real. And she said to me, why would you doubt it for a minute? And I said, seriously? And she goes, yeah. I don't know, was it even the subject that caught me, but it was more the documentary that really hooked me, you know? I rewatched it over maybe, say, a two and a half year period. I'd say, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 times. I couldn't get my head around it. And I was looking for something in the rise, something that would tell me they were lying, or it was bull, it was crap, you know? And I couldn't. And every time I watched it, I took a little bit more away from it, because it's a big documentary and it covers a lot of issues, not only just the ET issues, and I know there is an awful lot of crap out there about the subject, and it's trying to wade through all the crap to trying to make sense of what's probably real and what's not. As I say, I watched it a good few times until I got to the point where I fully believed it. You know, I came from an anally skeptical background. You know, if you said to me, if we went back in time 3 or 4 years and you said to me, listen, we're going to be talking about this, we're going to be having a video conversation about UFOs and ETs, I'd have laughed you out of the room. You know, it wasn't my jam at all. Jesus, sitting here talking about it now, it's, you know, when I actually start verbalizing it, it's bananas. That brought me up to, I suppose, 2020. I work with dogs for a living, so I'm a dog trainer and I'm a behaviorist. I do group training classes on a Tuesday evening, and I was coming out of work. They go on from, you know, 7 to 8 at night time, and I was coming out of work. It was, I suppose, 8:30, you know, by the time you get locked up and, you know, people ask you the few questions and all that kind of stuff. I walked out and there's a car park across the road, and right above the car park, there was a light. You know, I mean, if you kind of half glanced at it and you weren't really kind of, I suppose, switched on to the subject, you just think it was a really bright star. But looking at it for any length of time, you realize it couldn't be a star. This thing, you know, I took video footage of it, but this thing, you know, I took a comparison to the moon, and this thing was about maybe a 20th the size of the moon, and you know, that night. It was way too big to be a star. And it was just sitting there. It wasn't moving. It was a full moon that night. So, you know, it wasn't a shooting star, it wasn't moving, it wasn't a comet. It was just sitting there in the sky. And I'm looking at it, am I seeing things? You know, so I started videoing, and I sat there and I watched it for the guts of an hour. And this couple came along, they walked past, and I said, how are you? Sorry, can I bother you? Can you see that? And the guy looks up and he just goes, oh, it's a drone. And I said, it can't be a drone. I said, a drone can only stay in the air for, you know, maybe 25, 30 minutes max, the top drones. And I said, there's no way. I used to be a pilot myself, and I said, there's no way it would just sit there hovering that still for that long. It's impossible. He just walked on, didn't take any more notice of it. And I continued watching it for another little while. And there's a go-karting centre next door to me. These three young fellas came out of the go-karting centre, three dubs. I walked over to them and I said, lads, how are you? And they were looking at me wondering who the hell I was, And I said, sorry to bother you. I said, can you see that? I said, or am I imagining things? And they looked, and immediately they were drawn to it. And, oh, Jesus, Mick, Jesus, what's that? Oh, Jesus, and that's all you can hear the Dublin accent. They were, totally sucked in as well. The camera on the phone I had at the time wasn't very good. They had a much more up-to-date phone and their camera was outstanding. And the footage they got was incredible. So when they zoomed in on it, you could actually see it. It looked like a blue plasma ball or a nucleus or something. Okay?
Oh, we're so helpless down here, little insects we are, man. What the fuck is that? Is it a star? Man, I mean, the UFO, bro, wouldn't be revealing stuff like that.
It's smaller now, watch.
Yes, it keeps flickering, man. It's flickering light.
We're all gonna die.
A couple of weeks later, I saw a documentary called Lights in the Sky, made by a girl called Krista Alexander. Her documentary, it's a homemade jobby, it wouldn't be as polished now as, say, Unacknowledged. Some of the stuff that she has in it looked like what I videoed. It looked like this blue light, from a distance it looks white, but when you zoomed in with the camera, you could see it was blue. So I messaged her on Facebook and I said, listen, I took something a couple of weeks ago. I said, if I sent it to you, would you have a look at it and, tell me what you think? I sent it on to her and I sent her on the Dubs footage as well. And she's actually ex-military. When she was in the military, she used to be a videographer. Whatever she was doing, she worked with digital video. When she slowed it down and zoomed in on it, you could actually see it rotating and changing colors in my footage. And when she zoomed in on the Dubs footage, she slowed it down and kind of paused and you could really see it. You could see into it. It just looks like a blue plasma ball or a nucleus, but it's fascinating to look at it. So that was fine. That would have brought me up to the middle of April. And just shortly after that, then Stephen Greer came out with his next documentary, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Okay? So I sat down with my partner and we watched it. And he's got these hippies and they go out to the desert and he's teaching them how to meditate and communicate with the extraterrestrials and call them. Okay? And I thought, oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, what a crock. They're a load of Scientologists. It's all bullshit. Okay? And all the faith I had in the guy was gone. And then at the end of the documentary, then he starts talking about, oh, we've had great success contacting them using he calls them anti-gravity chairs, but they literally just they raise your feet up at a nice level and get you in a nice relaxed position. And then you have to download his app. So then I'm thinking, all right, okay, it's all about the money, right? He's probably got shares in the chairs and you have to spend a tenner to buy his app. I was completely disheartened at this stage. But I'm a bit of a so-and-so for proving something right or proving it wrong. So I buy the chair and I buy the app and I do nothing with it for a couple of weeks. Remember, COVID had just started now at this stage. It's just like a garden reclining chair. He calls it an anti-gravity chair, but it's just, it's got these two little wheels on the side of it and you can lean right back into nearly a lying down position and it raises your feet up and then you can lock the two wheels. So it's a really comfy chair and it is really good for meditating and getting you relaxed. That was fine. On the 14th of May, 2020, we had an unusually good bout of weather here in Ireland. We had like 6 or 7 weeks, or maybe even a bit more, maybe 8 weeks of really hot weather, like 24, 25, 26 degrees, sunny days. And we don't get that in Ireland. And we're in the middle of the first lockdown in COVID. And it was really, really quiet. It was like something from a zombie movie, the way you drive down the streets. The 14th of May, I have 2 dogs myself, and I let them out to the toilet out the front of the house. They were out there for 10 or 20 minutes anyway, and I let them back in. And I stuck my head out the door, and it was really unusually warm night. It was like 15 or 16 degrees, which we don't get in Ireland. When I looked up at the sky, it looked like an American sky. You know the way you see on the TV programs when you see the sky at nighttime and all you can see is the Milky Way and it's just trillions and trillions of stars. Normally when you look up at the sky in Ireland, you see the plough and that's it, nothing else. We don't get those skies, but we got one of those skies that night and it was magnificent. So I said to myself, right, if I'm ever going to do this thing, tonight's the night. So I brought out the chair and I brought out the phone. I set up the app and I'd never meditated in my life. You play with the app, play these binary tones you play that for 5 or 10 minutes and then he talks you through a meditation. And anything he was asking me to do, I couldn't do. Okay, remember, I'd never meditated before. So he's like, close your eyes. Okay, so I close my eyes. Clear your mind. I couldn't do that. Relax. I don't think I was relaxed at all. See your astral form leave your body. Picture it leaving your body and see yourself floating off up into space. Couldn't do that, right? When you're up in space, see, feel, know, sense an ET presences around you and politely invite them down to visit you. I didn't sense jack, nothing. Anything he was asking me to do, I couldn't do. And I started to get a little bit frustrated and I just switched off. And he's just there still talking in the background, blah, blah. Then I started to get a little weirded out. You know, this is 1:30 in the morning now and I'm out the garden. First of all, I felt like a complete plonker, sitting out in the garden, meditating, trying to contact extraterrestrials. I felt like a right idiot, first of all. And then secondly, I was a bit weirded out. I have to say, I'm on my own out the back garden on a chair, trying to contact ET.
As you do.
As you do, right? And are a bit nervous or whatever. Then I remember the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind documentary. At one stage, this very well-spoken, for want of a better word, hippie with long hair comes on and he starts talking about, he said, this happens everybody the first time you try it. He said, you start to feel, you know, all the things we've been programmed with, you know, the War of the Worlds, Independence Days, that all comes flooding up and you start to get worried and then you're thinking, oh, am I going to be all right? What's going to happen to me? And he said, it happens to everybody. So he said, if that happens, he said, reach out with your mind and say to them, listen, I'm feeling a bit nervous here. And he said, ask them to help you through your emotions. And he said, they will. I said, right, I've gone this far with it. I'll go another bit. So I reached out with my mind and I said, right, and this is exactly what I said. I said, this guy in the documentary says, if I ask you to help me work through my emotions, you will you please? And instantly, I just calmed right down. So still have my eyes closed and I'm thinking in my own mind, I think, right, this is strange. Then I got really calm. And then I felt I should open my eyes. And the second I opened my eyes, a blue orb about 4 times the size of a basketball, I'd say, flew silently over the roof of the house about 20 feet over my head. Now I'm compos mentis, but I'm in shock, like, and I'm pinching myself. I'm like, Jesus, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. And I took out the phone and I took what I thought was a 10-second video. And then I put the phone down because before I forget, when it appeared, I got an overwhelming sense of peace and calm and love. No, not if I saw an ET or if I saw a UFO, I'd be out over the back wall, down the back fields, and you wouldn't see me for a fortnight. You know, I'm sitting there as calm as you like. And all I kept saying to myself, this can't be happening. And so I took the 10 seconds of footage and there's kind of a tree line a couple of fields away, you know, at the back of the house, and it stopped over the tree line for, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds, and then off it went. And it was completely silent. And that's the weird thing, because you're waiting for the or some sort of noise, and there's no noise. I sat there in shock for about 15 minutes, and then I thought, geez, the phone. And I picked up the phone, and I looked at the video, and unfortunately, I made a mess of the video. I thought I got 10 seconds of footage. I only got a second, but I accidentally took a photo. And in the photo, I physically only saw one, but the photo captured 2 of them. And Greer had actually said that they're transdimensional, they can materialize and dematerialize. I'm convinced at this stage you'll only see them if they want you to see them. And that's why, you know, that footage that the Americans have released with, you know, the Tic Tac, they're not ETs. That's their own reverse engineered craft. And there's no way that they would spend 11 hours chasing a fleet of ships. It's not their style. They give you little glimpses, and it's definitely not that in your face. I've never experienced that anyway. To me, that Tic Tac craft is some, excuse my French, gobshite scientist who couldn't think outside the box. He's a real super brainy guy. Right, what'll I build? He doesn't build the Millennium Falcon, he builds a Tic Tac.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing! It's rotating.
completely unimaginative, you know. And anything that I've seen, they're bright, they're light, they're luminescent, they're, for want of a better word, they're otherworldly. It's not a tic-tac you're looking at.
The one you spotted disappeared.
I was looking at the other one, yeah.
Lads, that's not a fucking satellite. Okay, hold on. Okay, talk to it, talk to it, talk to it. Ask it to come back.
Come back. Come back. Holy moly, and we haven't even
It started. Come back.
Okay. Can you come back? Can you do something? Can you glow? Can you glow?
There. Come on.
There was two of them in the photo, and I presume that the reason I only physically saw one of them, I think they were trying not to overload me. They didn't want to frighten the hard out of me. I think it was enough seeing one of them, let alone two. But and the other thing is, in the video, in the 1 second video, you can't really see anything, but you can hear them. It makes this funny sound. Now, I couldn't hear anything with my ears, but the phone picked up something in sound and sight that my human ears and eyes couldn't see. So that was the 14th of May 2020. Okay. It was such a profound experience. And that photo, it just looks like a little blurred light. It was kind of fizzing as it was moving, you know, kind of, and I think that's why you get the blur, but the other one is blurred almost in the same pattern. It looks like a slight blue hue around it. And that's the anti-gravity propulsion system that you know, the guy Bob Lazar talks about. And an awful lot of the stuff that he talks about, I've seen. Struggled with it mentally, with the reality of a few months after that. Like, literally, it's all right saying it, but actually physically seeing it with your own eyes, it changes everything. I kept saying, am I going mad? Am I losing my mind? Did that actually happen? And I had to keep going back and forth between the photos and the videos. You know, eventually then it settled with me that it was real and it did happen. Actually, another thing that happened was I got in contact with the girl in the States. I can't give you her name because I haven't asked her permission to give her name. She was on the girl Krista Alexander's Facebook page, Lights in the Sky. She liked or commented on one of the photos that I put up, and I messaged her and I said, do you mind me talking to you about it and about your experience? She started talking about her experience and she said, oh yeah, she said, I see them all the time. And I said, like, what's all the time? Like, is it like every day? Is it once a week? Or, you know, funny girl, she didn't answer me. And then out of the blue, then I got a message back from her saying, you're going to start seeing them all the time too. And I think, but how do you know that? She never answered, but she was right. And I've started seeing them all the time. Maybe a couple of times a week. It's regular, like, right? Anyway, that was that. And as I say, mentally, I struggled with the reality of it for a few months. Now, the funny thing is, while I was going through that mental battle, I never saw them. The second I relaxed and I accepted it and said, yeah, do you know what, this happened and this is real, right? Then they started coming back again. So I'm convinced they'll never give you more than you can cope with. They're definitely tuned into different people's frequencies and their vibration. I'm certain of it. I'm also certain they can control the weather as well. These are American skies, not Irish. And I've always a good feeling I'm going to have a sighting if the sky is really, really good here, right? Because it normally isn't. And actually, the blue skies that we've been having in January and February have been completely unnatural. Everybody's around us just saying, it's like, this is mad. We've never had this before. I decided to go out then and I did another meditation on the 14th of December. So this is when I kind of started accepted it and I kind of come to terms with it. I saw, you'd think it was a satellite in the sky, a little ball just moving along like that, right? It glowed really bright and then it shot off. And again, I reached out with my mind and I said, is that you? I said, if it's you, can you come back? And he did. And the next thing, he came along like this and it glowed really bright. But instead of shooting off in a straight line, he came back in the exact same place in space. But this time he did an arc to really let me know, yeah, okay, I hear you, and it's me. It happened way, way, way too fast to photograph anything. But I started snapping with my phone because I remember back in May, I physically saw one, but I didn't see the second one, but the camera caught two. So I said, I wonder if there are more of them up there. So I started snapping and there was a fleet of them. Like there was a good dozen or more. So that was the 14th of December. Then January came, and this was January 21. I remember I was telling you we started getting the weird weather. We don't get Januaries like this. That guy came along and he sat out the back of the house for about 5 minutes, and then he kicked his arse up in the air like that, like you're seeing, kind of like at a slant, like he was waving at me. And then he started to dematerialize and flew off. Seemingly, it's almost impossible to see a satellite with the naked eye because the size of a car. Even if you did see them, the sun would have to be shining on them at a certain particular angle, and you'd literally only get a glimpse. You wouldn't get a static ball moving, you know what I mean? This is the next one in February.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. It's completely silent. Okay. Wow, he's low. I mean, I don't know, maybe 1,000 feet, less. How's it going? I mean, I literally just, oh, he's glowing bright. Wow. I really want to wave at him, but so he's just right, literally right over the house now. Totally silent. And okay. How's it going? The roof of the house will probably start coming into view now. I mean, he's low. Like, he is low. Wow. I mean, definitely, I would say less than 1,000 feet. See? Okay, now I'll get the static.
Okay, so this is just out the front of the house. Now, again, we were in the third lockdown. I was literally, I'd say no more than 30 seconds outside the front door. I was minding a friend's dog. He dropped the dog off. I went out. Literally, oh, geez, how's it going? Yeah, took the dog, brought him in. So, I mean, that interaction took 15 or 20 seconds. And then when I was going out again, I was bringing the dog out again in the evening. And again, oh, there you are, yeah, okay, talk to you later. And I just handed the dog back again. And that took another 15 or 20 seconds. So in the 30 seconds I was outside, it knew to fly across at 5:30 in the evening, at exactly the time I was coming out of the house, in exactly the frame of the line of sight that I would see it. When they want you to see them, you'll see them. When you try and talk to people about it, you know, like they look at you like you're mad. There's 6 in our family, and one of my sisters I haven't spoken to in 2 years because of it. When I was like struggling with it mentally, you know, I tried to talk to her about it. I said, look, you know, and she's like, no, go away, get antidepressants and go off yourself. So like most people aren't ready. And I mean, even coming from my own perspective, like it took me 2 or 3 years to fully believe all this, like, and I'm having the experiences. Your average person, like, it would be very hard for them to fathom or believe this. That brought me up to 2021. So in 2021, I was seeing one once a month, kind of January, February, March. And then from sort of April onwards, then they really started up in the game then, you know, and I have one particular buddy, I'll show you now. Sometimes he hovers out the back of the house for hours. And I'm like, look, do you want to come in? Do you want to, you know, come down and have tea? You know, and I don't hear a voice in my head or anything like that. But you know, I'm trying to have a conversation, but you never get the two-way conversation. And, you know, eventually get tired and I'm like, well, feck you, so I'm going to bed. And I'd be down brushing my teeth and I'd take one last look out the window and he's still hovering there. Oh, yeah. So when I was struggling with it mentally, there's a part on Stephen Greer's app called Contact. You have network and you have contact. So contact shows you how to contact the ETs. Network lets you message anybody who's downloaded his app and who obviously is into this, right? So I started messaging a few people anyway, and I got a group together from all over the country. And there's about 14 or 15 in the group now. But 12 of them came and they stayed with me for a weekend, 17th of July last year, the Friday and Saturday. And the Saturday was good, but the Friday it was like a light show from 9 o'clock that night until 4 o'clock that morning. We saw 30 or 40 different things. Like, it was just amazing.
Wow.
But seemingly they're drawn to people who are creative, like artists or musicians, or, you know, like I work with dogs. Do you know what I mean?
A huge thing. It's a paradigm shift of gargantuan proportions, especially for folks like you and Bill, who are those folks who are anally skeptical. I mean, I've never known anybody like him.
He felt he was abducted as well, or and what did they look like?
Mainly he saw greys, but he also saw the Nordics, look like those sort of tall blondes, very beautiful, very...
Linda Moulton Howe, she claims that she spoke to some guy who was in the CIA or intelligence or whatever, and that he said to her that there's three races at war here on Earth: the Greys, the Nordics, and the reptilians. We've all seen the kind of the typical image of the Greys. In a documentary that she was on recently called The Observers, they actually released footage that was taken and shot in the 1940s of an actual Grey. It was shocking to see it. We're certain now there's Greys, right, between the footage released and so many people having so many interactions with them. If there's three races here at war, how come nobody anywhere has ever taken a photo of a reptilian or a Nordic? I've never seen one, or I've never heard of even one existing.
Well, a lot of people have tried to take images and they have a lot of interference on our electronics, and
if they don't want you to see them, you won't see them. Even Bob Lazar said that. He said that their propulsion system is an anti-gravity propulsion system, a gravity wave bent around the ship. And he said if you were standing directly under it, he said you wouldn't be able to see it because gravity bends light. On Gaia, they have cosmic disclosure. So your man Emery Smith and that ex-military guy Richard Doty, and there are one or two more guys like that on it. But the stuff they talk about, there's all sorts of civilizations under the earth, and that we're already out there up in space, and we already have fleets of spaceships up there, and we're interacting with other species up there, and none of this is known. And that actually we have armies, human armies up in space that are hired by less aggressive extraterrestrials, and that we're like guns for hire, if you like, and all this sort of stuff.
The century before last had already created wireless technology.
The free energy.
At least behind because of the globalist elite. And
yeah, 100%. I 100% agree with that.
So I got to know John Searle quite well. You may or may not have heard of him. There's a video documentary out there. He was an English inventor, and BBC and people used to, in the 60s, film and photograph his latest development. He got these discs, which were not manned, these were prototypes. He got these into the air and he got them flying, say, from the mid of England to Cornwall in like, I don't know, 5 minutes. This is well documented. Sadly, he left us about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I know, but Jesus, fact is definitely stranger than fiction, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. So now you're acclimatized and you've got to July 17th, 2021. Then you have these amazing sightings, what have you?
This is my buddy. He's around the whole time.
You're gonna have to get up a bit more.
It's the same guy.
Oh my god, I need to stand up.
It's the same guy.
Yeah, really bright
Oh,
ones.
really slow.
That was the first time I taken it.
Oh, it's really slow. I'll just wait until.
Yeah. Got another good 10 minutes before he passes.
That dude that you're looking at there now, he made about 7 or 8 passes over the roof of the house, like literally maybe 100 feet in the air, right? There was only one time where they didn't want to be photographed or filmed, and that was the summer solstice. It was the 21st of June. Yeah, last year, 21. Okay. Like I said to you, I don't hear voices in my head or anything like that. But sometimes I get a feeling when they're going to be around. Now, what the feeling is, it's like, you know, that feeling that there's something itching at the back of your mind. Did I forget something? That's the feeling. I remember this particular day, that the summer solstice, it was a Monday, the 21st of June, 2021, and I was at work. That morning, I got that feeling, and I just kind of brushed it off. And no, it's nothing. Forget about it. And then later on that day, it came back, and it was stronger around lunchtime. And again, I just kind of brushed it off. About 5 o'clock that evening, before I went home, it came back, and they may as well have hit me over the head with a bat. It was like, "Come on, we're coming tonight." You know, it's like, it was a really, really strong sensation. I was like, right, okay, they're definitely coming tonight. You know, and then I sat out. This particular crowd that I saw, I've never seen them before, and I've never seen them since. But there was dozens of them, dozens, lighting up the sky. And as soon as I take out the phone, they'd all disappear, and they'd stay gone. And then one would appear, and then he'd fly along, and he'd see me with the phone again. Then he'd disappear again. And as soon as I put the phone down, they'd all come out again, dozens of them. And then I'd take the phone out, and they'd all disappear again. And then I went out again on the Wednesday. And on that Wednesday, I went out and I meditated. Again, this guy flying along like this, like a satellite, glows really bright, and then takes off. So I reached out with my mind and said, "Is that you? Can you come back?" And then he came back and he did it again. I said, "Right, I promise you tonight, no phone, no video, no photographs." And the next day he came back again, and he glowed really bright, took off again. And he did that, I'd say 7 or 8 times. And I don't know what possessed me. The next time he came along, I blew a kiss up at him, or her. The next thing, they glowed really bright, and then took off. And then did that another 4 or 5 or 6 times. And then the next time he did it, I said, "You're my very good friend." And this time he glowed super bright, and took off. And he just did it in the exact same space in the sky, I'd say at least 20 times. But I knew that was for me. It wasn't for anybody else. You know what I mean? And it's lovely when they interact with you. Sometimes they'll do stuff, you know, if you ask them to move left or right or glow or, you know, whatever it is, you know, they'll interact with you. Like, I used to be a pilot, right? So my buddy was out the back, the lad that's around the whole time, right? The next thing I could see a plane, you know the lights of a plane, you know the way they go, boop, 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 and it was flying, and he started flying towards the UFO, right? You know, being an ex-pilot, I was like, he has to see that, because when you're up there, you have a completely unobstructed view, and this is at nighttime, and this guy was really, really, really bright. You couldn't miss it. And I said, that pilot, he has to see it. So the next day, then I was, you know, I was checking the media and, you know, checking the papers and just to see, was there any pilot report of a UFO? And there was nothing. So I went back and I looked at it again. And this time I zoomed in on the plane. But when I did, I discovered it wasn't a plane. It was another UFO flying over the first UFO. And it was changing color and shape. I took a few stills of it as well. I was a helicopter pilot. I had my private license and I was on the way to get my commercial license, and I kind of, you know, I do an odd couple of jobs. You wouldn't get like paid as such. Then the crash came, and that was the end of that. The world crashed in 2007, and that was the end of me flying.
So how long did you actually fly for? Was it a year?
It's about three years, maybe. Yeah. So this is the second time I saw what I call a flashy one.
Guy, he's back.
Here, come over here. Come here. Tabs on that now, right?
In November last year, right, the 18th of November. This is why I'm saying that they've definitely got a sense of humor, because this one pretended it was a Cessna plane, and it was definitely for the benefit of the neighbors, so as not to frighten them, right? and there's power lines outside my house, and it literally flew 10 feet over the power lines, right? And it made the sound of a Cessna, right? And it was flying over, and then when it got over my head, and it stopped making the sound, and then it flew over the house, and then you could just see the lights flashing, going off out over the back garden, right? Now, it physically flew over my head. There was no body, there was no propellers, it was just two orbs, right? But they were kind of flashing in sync. When I zoomed in again and slowed down, they've changed all sorts of different colors, which obviously planes don't do, from gold to green to blue to purple to orange to pink, you know, all spectrum of colors. Like, planes have two lights, red and green, that's it. These two, when they flash bright, way too big to be a plane or a helicopter light, and they're too close together. And I remember I was talking to a friend of mine the following day, and he says, do you think really could they make the sound of a Cessna? And I said, well, you know, they can traverse time and space. So I said, you know, making the sound of a single-ended piston plane, I said, is probably fairly low down on the list of what they can do, like, you know. I have another sister. I call her my baby sister now. She's 8 years older than me, but we're the two closest to the rest. I was the accident. We've had the conversation. It frightens her a bit, you know, and so I don't kind of talk much about it. And I've sent her a couple of things, and I remember, see that flashy one that last year? I sent her that one, and she said I didn't sleep for 2 nights after that. She don't send me anymore. I've taken a few stills of it, and you can just tell you just know it's on a plane. But they definitely have a sense of humor. I was actually laughing my leg off and then when he stopped, and then just kept flying silently, you know. But it was definitely for the benefit of the neighbors. And I can tell you from having flown, there's a few reasons why that definitely wasn't a Cessna single-engine plane. First of all, they don't have night gear to fly at night. They're a cheap old box of crap, you know. Cessnas don't fly at night. Second of all, you need a pilot with the night rating to fly it at night. Now, if you have a night rating as a pilot, it's extremely hard to get, and you'd be very sought after. And you wouldn't be flying a Cessna; you'd be flying a 777 or a 747 or something. That's that reason. And the third thing is, planes legally aren't allowed to fly that low. There's a minimum ceiling height of 700 feet. This guy was flying about 50 feet. Those two flashy lights, that's about 50 feet in the air. It's about 10 feet over the power lines. There's no way it would be flying that low. I see these guys loads. Right, they pretend to be clouds or vapor trails. Do you remember that disc that I showed you that flew over the back of the house, and he stopped?
Yeah.
He parked outside the back of the house. Well, he came in looking like this before he formed the disc. Now, how a vapor trail works is when a plane is flying, the exhaust gets red hot, and the fumes that are coming out are red hot. And when they hit the ice cold air in the sky, they crystallize. Okay, and that's where you get the vapor trail. Now, the vapor trail is always brightest just as it's coming out of the exhaust of the engine at the back. But if you look at those, if you zoom in, it's brightest in the middle, scientifically and physically impossible if it was a plane. The light is in the middle of the vapor trail, not the edge where it should be, if it was a vapor trail. I see those guys all the time.
Do you have any idea who they might be?
See, not really, you know, and I've asked, I said, listen, lads, I'd love I talk to them now like I'm talking to you. And I said, lads, listen, I'd love a face-to-face. Can we have, will you come down for a cup of tea? You know, nah, don't hear anything back. Don't hear voices in my head. Don't get any reply, you know. Now, if I haven't seen them in a week or two, and I kind of feel, I don't need to meditate anymore. If I think things hard enough, usually they come about. And if I'm kind of missing them, because I went through a breakup with my partner January last year. We were together for 6 years and we had 2 babies. I mean, between that and COVID now, first of all, I drank enough to kill about 2 rugby teams. Second of all, yeah, I have to say that I was dealing with the fucking ETs excuse my French, at the same time. You know, so it was a journey, right? So I went through all that. I think the reason I see them so much, I see them as my friends. They were the only ones here. My buddy out the back here for hours. And I'd be chatting away to him, you know, and I'm like, I had no one else. And we're in the middle of COVID and I couldn't go out. My sister's immunosuppressed. I couldn't get a hug off anyone. I tell you now, when I didn't commit suicide, I did very well. I see them as my buddies, and you know, I don't even see them as aliens. I just see them as other people. You know, sometimes I really lost faith in humanity, and you know, I'd let it roar up at them, and I would F and blind them, and you know, you fuckers, like if you are real, will you just come down and help us? We need it so very badly. And I really used to swear at them all the time. They actually are helping us. I mean, they've disarmed more nuclear missiles, shut down more nuclear weapons than you and I have had hot dinners. You know, I mean, that's public knowledge now at this stage.
They have also activated a couple of lots as well.
Yes, and I'm convinced they were responsible for stopping the Cold War. I'm convinced of it.
Sure.
All of a sudden, Gorbachev and Reagan had come out and they're all shaking hands and hey, we're all buddies. But nothing happened to stop the Cold War, but something happened.
So, yeah, I don't know if you know who Robert O'Dean is. There's been this overfly of these craft. They were coming over from the Russian side, over Europe and what have you. And they were based in France, and the French did, it's called the Cometa Report, and the French did a whole assessment. And one day when his CEO gave him this top secret report to read, and the conclusion was that they weren't a threat. Very interesting if you listen to Robert O'Dean talk about that.
But they all say that. And like, even when Stephen Greer, he's interviewed all the guys that are down in the nuclear bunkers, and they've all said the same thing. You know, we don't think it's a threat. And if I hear that fella, Jeremy Corbell, I'd like to wring his neck. If I hear him say that, they're flying in space with impunity. If I hear that word impunity again, I swear to God, I'd like to kick him so hard at the goddamn backside. It just makes me sick. Like their name is written on the sky, you know? Oh, sorry. That just really bugs me. Oh yeah, they followed me to work recently. That was a first.
Oh, really? Some great pictures there.
I don't spend like hours outside watching the skies. Like, I mean, literally, I'd be letting the dogs out for a pee, and then they're there. Like, they know my routine. They know when, you know, they know when I'm going out. They were there during the worst of times when no one else was. You know, they were all ahead. I like them. I don't know. It gives me peace when I see them. You know, every time I look up and I see one, I have a good day, or it certainly brightens my day. You know the way kids kind of have like an extra sensory perception. I mean, I've always been a very outgoing person and an outgoing child, and I love the crack, and I'm all about fun. And, you know, maybe from the age of 8 up to 14 or 15, I couldn't make friends. There was a park up the road from my dad's shop. There's loads of kids up there. I go up there, and none of them were my genuine friend, and none of them would really hang out. And it was like I was giving off like an odor of garlic. There was definitely something different about me as a child. I just didn't fit in. I was always extremely athletic and extremely strong for my size. I have webbed toes. Does that count? Definitely, I have survived an awful lot of things that I shouldn't have survived. I was attacked by a German Shepherd when I was 3, and I was like, I should have been killed. I spent 8 weeks in intensive care. You know, I've been in car crashes and bike crashes, and I should have been killed on any number of occasions in my lifetime. And for some reason, I haven't been.
As well, with people reporting that they seem to have this miraculous ability to stay alive.
And I have a very unique natural ability with animals. And I'll give you another example. Good few years ago now, 12 or 15 years ago, I went diving with killer whales in very north of Norway in a place called Teesford. Okay. Now, there's never been a recorded incident where a killer whale has attacked a human in the wild. It's only ever happened in captivity, where literally they've been driven mad. We were on one of these, you know, one of these inflatable, they're like plastic or whatever in the bottom, and then they're all inflated all along the outside. So there was about a dozen of us on the boat, and then there was the captain or the pilot. He was racing along, and it's up in the Arctic Circle, like next stop Santa. You know, when you're hitting the waves, it's really rough. Like, I mean, it'll break your bloody backside. And the next thing he said, I see a family. And he said, I'm going to turn off the engines so as not to frighten them. And I'm going to try and float in front of them. And he said, slip in. When I say now, slip in and try not to splash. And he said, okay, now. And I slipped in. And I slipped in on top of one. Now, I didn't hit him. And then he swam down, and he actually sucked me down after him, you know, swam back up to the top, and I was looking down, and he was kind of circling underneath me. And the next I could hear my sister and her son, who were with me, calling me. And then, and when I turned around, they were pointing like this. They were all pointing, you know, and everybody in the boat was pointing. And I turned around and I could see these 3 big fins coming at me. And I wasn't really worried about getting eaten, but I said, if they don't see me, like, because I mean, I'm this small little thing, and if they hit me, it's going to be like being hit by a bus. That's kind of more what I was worried about. What the captain of the boat said afterwards, he said it was 2 males escorting a female. They got about 30 or 40 feet away from me, and the 2 males skirted off. But the female was interested, and she came over for a look. She was as close to me now as your monitor is to you there in front of your face, well within arm's reach. And she just sat there looking at me like, and I'm looking, I'm like, okay. Now, funny thing is, while she was there, a bit like the ET when I flew over the house, I was totally calm. And then I put out my hand to touch her, and then, oh, geez, if I frighten her now, and she goes cracked, you know. So I put my hand down, and I just enjoyed the experience. And she was there for, she was there for a good half a minute, I'd say. And then she swam on. Now, when she left, I got the shits, and I thought I'd never get back to the boat. I mean, I swam. Carl Lewis wouldn't have caught me going back to the boat. Swear to God, I mean, I swam like I've never swam. And I got up on the boat, and of course, you know, they were all supposed to be gone in, you know. And I got up on the boat, and I was like, where were you fuckers? You know, and they went, we're not going in, no way. And I was the only one that jumped in, you know. So, but the captain said afterwards, he says, I've never seen an interaction like that. He said, they don't interact. He said, they might pass you 50 feet away, have a look at you and swim on, but they don't come up to you. She sat there, and the big eye was looking at me. I mean, I could have reached out and touched her. And I remember I had a similar experience down in Fanor in Clare. We have a dolphin down there called Dusty. People do stupid things like they put their hands on her blowhole and poke her in the eye and dive bomb her. And she's seriously hurt a couple of people. I went down anyway, and there's a handrail, concrete slipway down, you know, that you'd reverse a boat down. So I waited there for a few minutes, and there was no sign of Dusty. So I picked up a stone, and I started tapping on the metal rail under the water, and she heard it. And after about 5 minutes, she came over. So I was sitting on the edge of the steps, and I was talking to her, like, you know, like I talk to the dogs, and, oh, you're a very good girl, and come over here. And actually, she came over and she hopped up my lap. Anyway, okay, geez, this is great, right? I wasn't expecting this at all. And the next thing, this guy was up on the stairs, and he saw her do it, and he comes running down, is that the dolphin? You know, and of course, he frightens the hell out of him. Seemingly, according to science, the whole universe is vibrating. We all vibrate, and we all give off frequency. ETs give off a different frequency. I said, that's the only way we know one of these replicants or one of these hybrids from a normal human being. And according to Stephen Greer, he says that they've reverse engineered their craft decades ago.
So what's the green?
So that green orb, now I sent that off to Krista Alexander to have a look at it, you know, just to make sure it wasn't camera flare. But I don't think it was. The green orb was, that was the 6th of February. They're the most recent encounters that I've had. So this lad followed me to work, and that was the 27th of January. I got diagnosed with slightly high blood pressure and cholesterol a few years ago, and I started going to the gym, and very quickly I could deadlift like, you know, 200 kilos. My personal trainer reckons he's going to have me up to 250 by the summertime.
So are you still doing that now?
Yeah, I was always incredibly strong for my size, and because I'm not tall by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a complete atheist. I don't believe in any of man's gods. No, I do know for sure there's an afterlife. I don't believe in any of man's gods, and I don't believe in ghosts, and I don't believe in spirits, and I don't believe, you know, my dad was funny. He always said, like, when you die, that's it. You can own the dirt, and that's it. You're gone. I've found out that that's not true. But a few people have said to me that I'm a star child, or he's like, he says, Jesus, here, you know, they know, them lads, they know their own. They know their own, you know, that's what he keeps saying to me. And I'm like, Kenny, I don't think I'm an ET. I really don't think I am, you know. But a few people have said to me that they feel I'm whatever a star child is.
I guess it's somebody with often higher awareness, higher perspective, and higher just being a more, perhaps a more global or developed view of things and the way things operate, but naturally like a sixth sense.
Oh, I do have a superpower.
Oh, you do?
Yep. I've never had a hangover.
Oh, that is a superpower.
Well, that's what my buddies used to say to me growing up. Jesus Christ, that's a super. But I've actually never had a hangover.
That's amazing.
Told you the crap I went through in the last couple of years, and I've drank enough to kill a rugby team. And yeah, wake up the next morning, 7 o'clock, out the door, no problem. Or as some people call it, a functioning alcoholic. I went to the doctor the other day, and she said, we saw a very, very slight little spot on your liver. And I said, is that all? I said, I'm fucking surprised I have a liver now at this stage. You know, but as I said, I should be dead on any number of occasions. My mother died in 2011, and they say I don't believe in any man's gods. To me, religion was just created by SOBs for power and control. But I do believe there's an afterlife, and I do think there's a God of some shape, form, or description that, you know, we absolutely have no idea what. When my mother passed away, she died of fibrosis of the lungs, and she was on a ventilator in the end, you know, for the last day or so. The nurse came in and she turned on the oxygen, you know, and she said, it'll take about an hour for your mother to pass, and talking about the good old days. And, you know, we'd be, you know, 1 minute we're laughing, we're thinking about, you know, funny old stories, and then the next thing we're bawling, crying, and we're laughing, and we're bawling, and we're laughing, and we're bawling, you know. And so I remember going home the night before thinking, yeah, my mother's going to die at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And it's a very surreal feeling knowing when your parent is going to die. The hour was just about up, and I remember for some reason I stood up. I was holding her hand, and I stood up and I whispered in your ear, "Go on, off you go now. You've been through enough." And the second I said it, she flatlined. And I remember sitting back down in the chair, feeling the most awful feeling of pain and sadness, and that, you know, the earth was coming to an end and my life was over, and it just I felt the worst I've ever felt in my entire life. After a couple of minutes, the only way I could describe it to you is this, like a blanket, obviously not something you could see, but just something you could feel, this warm blanket of love started to come down over me. And I remember thinking, this is strange, you know, and all the pain started to go away. And it literally enveloped me. And all of us were all bawling. And all of us in one day, bang, everybody just stopped crying. And we all felt it. And I'm just sitting there, and the only way I could describe it to you was love and euphoria. It lasted for, I'm guessing, maybe around 20 minutes. And then slowly it started to lift. And I was like, oh, please don't go, please don't go. And then it was lifting, and then it was gone. But when the pain came back, it wasn't a tenth as intense as before the loving blanket came. Definitely my mother's life force, or soul, or energy, or whatever you want to call it, leaving us, and it was intelligent and it was loving, and she was leaving us the way a mother should, and she was letting us know, listen lads, it's fine. I'm going to a better place, you know, and you're going to be okay. Whatever the afterlife is, I got a taste of it, or a glimpse of it, when my mother died. So there definitely isn't the end. There's definitely more. Sure. You know, it was good to unload, because and sorry for unloading, by the way.
Oh, no. I'm here to hear it as well. Now you've been brave enough to share it with a stranger, and let me tell you, the upstairs lot, they'll be knowing you're having this conversation. They'll be twigging, listening in. Oh,
I have no doubt.
You know,
they might have given me the psychological nudge to contact you, because like I've been sitting on this for, you know, for the last couple of years, haven't done anything. I have no interest in being famous. Definitely don't want the, you know, I don't want the notoriety of it. You know what people would say, you know, crazy UFO dog guy. You know, I think of my kids, like, and they're like, Jesus Christ, you know what they'd have to live through. I have to say, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Stephen Greer, because he does come across, as, use my French, as a bit of a pompous prick, you know, but I kind of forgive him for that. Can you imagine the life that he's had, the death threats, the government giving him cancer, giving his 2 friends cancer at the same time, you know, the life, the ridicule that he's had. Like, Jesus. Well, you'd obviously have an idea of it. Another one who's 100% accurate as well is Bob Lazar. He talks about the anti-gravity propulsion system, the field around the craft. You can see that in my videos. You know, I like Bob Lazar, but, you know, I think he possibly may have been released by the government as a long-term puppet to disclose, not knowingly, himself. Because if they wanted him dead, he'd have been dead. There's no two ways about it. He'd have been another Stan Myers. They wouldn't have let him get as far as George Knapp. I think George Knapp is a bit of a tool for the government as well. I think he's a bit of a mouthpiece of the government, as is Jeremy Corbell. They're all hanging around with that To the Stars Academy guys and that Tom DeLonge and all that. And I think they're all government mouthpieces myself. Maybe I'm wrong, but giving you a few bits. But I've any amount of stuff on my phone. I could, dozens and dozens of encounters now at this stage. I don't know how many. I lost count. 40, 50 plus. As I say, I don't meditate anymore. If I kind of miss them and I would kind of want to see them, I'll be thinking about them for a day or two, and then something will happen. Lots of time they're out the front or out the back of the garden.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. It's completely silent. Okay. Wow.
For me, they definitely came at a time in my life when I needed them, where I had really lost faith in humanity. They've been there for me, I have to say. I know that sounds a bit mad, but they have. And Ireland is England is definitely more open to it. America, especially now that the Pentagon has admitted that they're real. But in Ireland, we're always way, way behind in this stuff.
All righty. Well, I shall go and get some supper.
Okay, same as that. I'm starving.
Yeah.
There's no fasting here, Joanne.
I've come off my fast.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Great to talk to you. Thanks yourself. Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye.